This happened during my freshman year at a university in Michigan. I lived in one of the older dorms on campus. It wasn't terrible, but it had that old college building smell, dust, laundry detergent, microwave popcorn, and whatever had been spilled into the carpet years before. The walls were thin, the bathrooms were shared, and every door had a little whiteboard or name tag on it. My roommate, Kayla, and I had our names taped to the outside of our door. Mine was written in blue marker. Hers was in purple. The first weird thing happened in October. I came back from class and noticed my name tag was gone. Kayla's was still there. At first, I thought it had just fallen off. I checked the floor, the hallway, even the trash can by the elevator. Nothing. I wasn't scared. Just annoyed. I made a new one and taped it back up. 2 days later, it was gone again. This time, Kayla noticed before I did. She texted me a picture of the door and wrote, "Why does someone keep taking your name?" That made me uncomfortable, but I still thought it was probably some dumb freshman prank. Then things got stranger. One night, around 1 a.m., Kayla and I were both in the room. She was asleep, and I was at my desk finishing a paper. I had headphones on, but no music playing. That was when I heard someone stop outside our door. Dorm hallways are noisy. You get used to footsteps, doors slamming, people laughing. But this was different. The person didn't walk past. They stopped. I turned around and stared at the door. A few seconds later, someone tapped on it. Very softly. 3 times. I took one headphone out and waited. Then I heard a whisper. My name. Not Kayla's. Mine. I froze. I looked over at Kayla. She was still asleep. The whisper came again. Emily. I didn't answer. I grabbed my phone and texted Kayla from across the room, "Wake up. Someone is outside." She woke up confused, saw my face, and immediately sat still. The person outside knocked again. Then something slid under the door. A folded piece of paper. Neither of us moved until the footsteps finally walked away. Kayla picked up the paper. It was my original name tag. The one that had disappeared the first time. On the back, someone had written, "I found you." We called our RA. She came down, looked at the note, and told us it was probably someone messing around. But I could tell she was uncomfortable too. The next morning, campus security took a report. They told us to keep the door locked and call if anything else happened. For a week, nothing did. Then my name tag disappeared again. This time, we didn't replace it. That night, I woke up around 3 a.m. to Kayla shaking my arm. She was pointing at the door. Someone was trying the handle. Slowly. Not like a drunk person at the wrong room. Not loud. Not confused. They were turning the handle gently, letting it go, then trying again. Kayla called campus police while I stood there holding a metal water bottle like it was a weapon. The person outside must have heard us whispering, because the handle stopped moving. Then they knocked once. And again, they whispered my name. Campus police arrived a few minutes later, but whoever it was had already left. The next day, they checked hallway cameras. The camera on our floor had been covered with a piece of paper during the time of the incident. But the camera near the stairwell caught someone leaving the floor. It was a guy from the dorm next door. I didn't know him. I had never spoken to him. Campus police later told me he had been in one of my lecture classes. He had learned my name from attendance, found my dorm through some freshman group chat, and started coming by our floor at night. He told them he thought we had a connection. I had never noticed him. After that, the university moved me and Kayla to another dorm. I stopped putting my name on my door. I stopped posting my class schedule anywhere. I stopped thinking of dorms as automatically safe just because everyone around me was a student. The part that still bothers me is how normal he looked. He wasn't some stranger hiding in the woods. He was just another freshman with a backpack, sitting a few rows behind me in class. And for weeks, he knew exactly where I slept. This happened in my sophomore year at a college in Pennsylvania. My dorm had a basement laundry room that everyone hated. There were 6 washers, 6 dryers, 1 vending machine that barely worked, and a flickering fluorescent light that made the whole room feel like a bad horror movie. Most people did laundry during the day, but I had a terrible habit of waiting until I had no clean clothes left. So one Thursday night, I went down there around midnight. I put my clothes in the washer, set a timer, and went back upstairs. 35 minutes later, I came back down to move everything to the dryer. The basement was quiet. Too quiet. Usually, you could hear pipes, machines, people walking above you. But that night, it felt like the air had gone still. My washer had stopped. But the lid was open. That immediately annoyed me because I thought someone had touched my clothes. Then I saw that my laundry basket had been moved. It was no longer on top of the washer. It was sitting on the floor near the maintenance door at the back of the room. I walked over and grabbed it. That was when I noticed the maintenance door was open a few inches. There was no reason for it to be open. Students weren't allowed in there. It led to storage, pipes, and the old mechanical rooms. I told myself not to be dramatic. I put my clothes in the dryer and left. When I got back upstairs, my roommate was still awake. I mentioned the door, and she said maintenance probably forgot to close it. That sounded reasonable. Until my phone buzzed. It was an email from the campus laundry app. Your dryer cycle has been stopped. I stared at the notification. I had just started it less than 5 minutes ago. My roommate told me not to go back down alone. I laughed it off, but I asked her to come with me anyway. When we got to the basement, my dryer door was open. Some of my clothes were on the floor. The maintenance door was now fully open. My roommate whispered, "We should leave." Then we heard a cough. It came from inside the maintenance room. We both ran. We called campus security from the lobby. 2 officers came and checked the basement. At first, they didn't find anyone. Then one of them opened a small side room behind the maintenance area. There was a chair in there. Not a random chair. A folding chair that someone had set up facing a tiny gap in the wall. That gap looked directly into the laundry room. They also found empty energy drink cans, a hoodie, and a phone charger. Campus security told everyone it was probably a homeless person who had gotten into the building. But a week later, I found out the truth from a friend who worked at the front desk. It wasn't a homeless person. It was a student. A senior who lived in a different building had found a way into our dorm through a basement service entrance that didn't latch properly. He had been hiding in that maintenance room at night. And he had been watching people do laundry. I asked if he had taken pictures. My friend said she didn't know. That answer was worse than no. The school fixed the basement door after that. They added cameras and put up signs saying the laundry room was monitored. But I never used it alone again. Even now, years later, I hate basement laundry rooms. Because every time I hear a machine stop unexpectedly, I think about my clothes on the floor, that door standing open, and someone sitting quietly behind the wall, watching. I had a roommate during my junior year who I barely knew before we moved in together. Her name was Megan. She was nice enough, but we had very different schedules. She was in a sorority and went out a lot. I worked part-time at the campus library and usually came home late, around 11 or midnight. We lived in an on-campus apartment with 2 bedrooms, a tiny kitchen, and 1 shared bathroom. It felt safer than the freshman dorms because it had a locked building entrance and you needed a student ID to get inside. Megan had a lot of friends over. At first, I didn't care, but there was one guy who made me uncomfortable from the beginning. His name was Tyler. I think he was a friend of someone in her group, not actually her close friend. He was always around, always leaning against the kitchen counter, always making comments that sounded like jokes but weren't funny. One night, I came home from work and found him sitting alone in our living room. No Megan. Just him. I stopped at the door. He smiled and said, "Hey." Megan went downstairs to grab food. I didn't like that he was alone in our apartment, but I didn't want to make a scene. I went into my room and locked the door. A few minutes later, he knocked. I didn't answer. He said, "I'm just trying to be friendly." I still didn't answer. The next day, I told Megan I didn't want her leaving people alone in the apartment. She apologized and said it wouldn't happen again. For a while, it didn't. Then things started moving in my room. Small things. My desk drawer would be open when I came home. A hoodie I knew I had left on my chair would be on the bed. Once, my closet door was cracked open even though I always kept it shut. I asked Megan if she had gone in my room. She said no. I believed her. So I bought a cheap door alarm online. The kind that sticks to the door and screams when it opens. I didn't tell anyone. 2 nights later, I was at the library when I got a text from Megan. "Your room alarm is going off." I left work immediately and ran back to the apartment. When I got there, Megan was standing in the hallway outside our door with 2 other girls. She looked terrified. Inside, my bedroom door was wide open. My alarm was still screaming. And Tyler was standing in my room. He wasn't stealing anything. He wasn't even trying to hide. He was standing by my closet, holding one of my sweatshirts. When he saw me, he said, "I thought this was Megan's room." That was impossible. Our doors were on opposite sides of the apartment. Mine had my name on a little dry erase board. Hers had sorority stickers all over it. Megan started crying and yelling at him to leave. He acted offended, like we were embarrassing him. Campus police came, and he told them the same story. Wrong room. Misunderstanding. He was drunk. But he wasn't drunk. I knew what drunk looked like. I worked on campus. I saw it every weekend. He was calm. Too calm. After he left, I checked my room. Nothing was missing. But in my closet, behind my shoes, I found something that made my stomach turn. A campus ID card. His campus ID card. It had been placed there. Not dropped. Placed. Like he wanted a reason to come back later and say he had left something in my room. Campus police took it more seriously after that. Megan cut him off completely. The building staff changed our lock, and he was banned from entering our apartment complex. But for the rest of the semester, I never felt comfortable in that room again. I'd lie awake at night staring at the door, waiting for the alarm to scream. People think the scary part of college housing is strangers getting in from outside. But sometimes it's worse. Sometimes the person is already inside. And everyone around you thinks he's harmless.